Hello, I'm Graham Horton and welcome to part 6 in this video tutorial series where I'm looking at smartphone photography for seniors or new users to these devices. Now in today's video I'm going to be shooting some close-up pictures using supplementary lenses. Now these are inexpensive devices. You can get a set of 4 of these of various strengths and they're about £17 in the UK, so that's just less than $20 in the States. You also need a little clip which will help you mount these onto the camera, and again these come with a 52mm or larger screw-in filter mount, and then you can screw your 52mm filters into that and clip them on the camera, as you'll see later in the video. These are very cheap and cheerful, single element glass, so there's only one lens in there and they're not coated. They'll give you an ideal introduction to close-up photography to find out which strength of lens, first of all, you're most likely to need for your type of photography. Then I'll show you the difference between that and what's called an achromatic lens. The achromatic lens has 2 elements, so that gets around some of the weaknesses, if you like, of the single element lens. You don't get colour fringes on the extreme edges of the image, and also you get sharper image from corner to center. So I've got various strengths here. This is a ×1 achromatic, and here I've got a ×2.5 achromatic. They're a little more expensive, but if you are into close-up photography and want the absolute best image possible, then the achromat is the way to go. We'll be using the iPhone 16 Pro because I can take the output from here, USB-C, into my video switcher so you can actually see what's being recorded. To record this I'm using the iPhone 13 Pro, and that is being adapted to HDMI with a little HDMI output box, so I can record that again in this mixer. So you're probably asking yourself the question, well, why would you use a supplementary lens on the lenses of these smartphone camera systems? Well, I like to use the ×5 lens or the ×3 lens of the iPhone 13. It gives me extra distance between the subject and the camera. So if I'm taking things like insects and butterflies, etc., that extra distance is valuable. If you're trying to go in with the macro lens at ×1, you're only 2 or 3 inches away from the subject, so if it's an insect, they're skittish and they're away. Gives you that extra distance. You can get extra lighting in there should you need it, but it also gives you a less field of view. If you're using the super wide lens as your macro lens, that field of view is quite wide, so even when you're photographing a couple of inches away, you've got quite an expansive background behind. And if you're doing tabletop photography, that means you've got to have very large boards behind to eliminate the area beyond that. If you're using the telephoto lens, obviously the field of view is much narrower because you're further away from the subject, and you can then use smaller backgrounds to enable you to get some decent background scenarios. They can be just plain backgrounds, or you can make your own backgrounds with paints and canvases and etc. Or even photograph a laptop screen behind your subject if you want to get a little bit more creative. So that's why I use the telephoto lens. But to reduce its working distance, remember with the ×5 lens, you're talking about 1.3 meters as its closest distance. Go beyond that towards your subject and the camera will switch over to the ×1 and add digital zoom, which gives you a lower image quality. So by adding a diopter lens, it's like giving you your own glasses. It allows you to move closer to get the same subject size without that fear of it switching into the wide lens and adding digital zoom. So depending on the strength of the diopter, it will depend how close you can move the camera and still maintain a minimum focus distance. I'll be showing you that here in the video. Let me show you my setup for this video, and then I'll be showing you how to take some fantastic pictures with those close-up lenses and some hints and tips so you'll ensure you get the very, very best image quality. So here you can see the little desktop scene that I've set up here. I've got 2 little tabletop lights, and in those tabletop lights are some daylight LED lamp bulbs. So they're just 5-watt lamp bulbs, standard desktop lamps, very cheap from your local hardware stores. Just put a little bit of tissue paper over the front of the lamp just to give a little bit of diffusion. The model car here is what, about 150 millimeters, just slightly longer long, and I've got a continuous sheet of paper resting on a desktop to give me sort of an infinity background, so we don't see any creases in the background. So that's how my desktop is set up. Got the iPhone 16 Pro here with the #1 lens attached to it, so we can film the car. And the actual feed coming from the camera at the moment is, as you see on screen now, and we're about 450 millimeters, 45 centimeters from the subject to the car. So we've now reduced that working distance from 1.3 meters, which was the closest focus distance with the iPhone 16 Pro Max times 5 lens, to about 450 millimeters, 45 centimeters, which allows us to move the camera closer and get the size of image you require. I'm going to take that shot and we'll look at that in the video, and we'll discuss some of the weaknesses of it and how to overcome those. So let me take the shot for you, and I'm going to set up the camera to give me a 3-second timer. This is now the iPhone 16 Pro running on the latest iOS 26 version of software. So this isn't the camera app, we're using the basic camera app, and this is the new format for the display. So we've got 16:9 aspect ratio because I want to include that in the video, and I'm going to select timer, and we're going to do a 3-second timer. So now when I touch the shutter button, the camera will fire after 3 seconds. You can see that bottom left hand side of the screen there, you got the 3-second timer, recording in JPEG and 24 megapixel image. So let me take that first shot. I'm going to set the focus point to the front of the car here. So I'm going to touch the screen, and if I want to brighten it, of course, then I use the sun icon. I can move that up to increase the brightness if I felt it was a little dark. There, we'll take the picture, it will count down and take the picture. Now you might be able to see in the video that the front of the car and the rear of the wing are sharp. The back of the wing is slightly out of focus, and that's what you would typically expect to see when you're taking macro pictures. You can't get a total overall sharpness with these particular setups. If you were to use the macro lens and go closer, using that super wide, you probably will get it in focus, but you get all the distortions as well. So it's better to use a telephoto lens and move further away, so you reduce the distortion. To overcome that limitation of the shallow depth of field, you can do what's called focus stacking. So you take your first image with the focus point set, say the front of the car. So I set that focus point there and take the picture. And then for my next shot, I would take it with the focus, say, set to the back wing of the car, take that picture. And then in a program like Helicons Focus, you can stack those together. There are other programs you can use to do focus stacking. You can actually get an app called Aurora HDR, I think it's called, but I haven't had much success combining images using that program. But it is out there for landscape photographers if you want to get better images for front to back sharpness, but I haven't found it of any use in these sort of tabletop environments. So you'd set your first point, you'd set your last point, and then take those 2 images or 3 images if it's a deeper subject, and combine them in something like Helicon Focus to give you an overall front to back depth of field sharpness. So that's using the standard ×1 diopter lens, and that will reduce your minimum focus distance to about 1 meter or closer if you got focus closer. This is an example using another app. This one is Halide. I did mention it in a previous video. It is a little bit hard of a learning curve, but again, you've got various features here like a self timer. You can set manual focus if you wanted to in the manual focus mode, or you can have autofocus. We're going to autofocus first of all. Wherever you touch the screen, the camera will focus. So if I take this first shot with a 3-second timer, and then we touch the fin on the back of the car, it will now focus on that and set the self-timer running. Or if you wanted to use manual focus, then click the AF and that bit now becomes a manual focus target. So I can change the focus point by using this slider. So I get it into focus where it needs to be. I would take the picture, and then if I wanted to change the focus on the front of the car, again I can just change the focus point without changing the exposure. So in some respects that's a better app than the standard camera app. Let me change the subject over to show you the amount of depth of field you can get with these lenses, or the different sizes you can get with different diopters. So I've changed the subject over now to these two beach babes, and there's a separation of about 150 millimeters, 6 inches between the first and last. So if I touch the first character, you can see she's nicely in focus. Let's just take that first shot. I'm going to look at that and probably find that the rear is slightly out of focus. And if I focus on the rear, we'll probably find that the front one is slightly out of focus. So we could combine those two images in Helicon Soft to give us a maximum overall depth of field. So that is using the number 1 lens. Let me switch over to a number 2. It allows me to get the camera closer, so we should be able to get a larger image. So this is now with the number 2 diopter lens attached to the ×5 lens. We're at a distance of about 18 inches away from the subject now. So that's about 18 inches away. You can see we just got the arm of the rear doll, and that is slightly out of focus, as you expect. So the closer you get, the shallower the depth of field becomes. Let me switch over to a ×4 lens, and again we can see the size of image magnification you can get. So this is the image now using that ×4 diopter lens, and you can see we can get fairly close to the subject. We're at a distance of about 14 inches, just over 30 centimeters away from the subject. I can actually bring this closer. I can't get the tripod any closer to the table, but I'm going to try and bring this a little bit closer and readjust the light. So that is about the closest focus distance. I need to back out slightly to about there. So that, with the number 4 lens, is about 9 or 10 inches away from the subject, and that's the closest I can get, and that is around about 3 centimeters tall across the top of the head. Just to give you an idea of the field of view, this is the ×1 lens, and you can see that the field of view is quite wide. The background, you can see, expands on either side of my white paper to include most of the room, so that's not what I want. So the only way you can do that is to change to a longer focal length. In fact, if we went to the ×2, which is a digital magnification, of course, you can see we can get a little bit less field of view, but you need to go to that ×5 to enable you to get the full range. But this one is without the diopter, so I'm going to have to bring the camera right back to that 1.3 meters to get the two of them in focus. So the camera is way back now at about 1.3 meters away, and you can see we can just about focus on the image. Let me take that picture. So you can see by using a telephoto lens and with a supplementary diopter, you can get closer and get a larger image. And carrying on the same sort of beach idea, here's two dolls which are around about 4 centimeters tall, and we're at a distance of about 3/4 of a meter, 75 centimeters away from the subject, and again using the ×5 lens and the number 1 diopter lens. Well, I hope you found the video useful and you got some hints and tips for taking your own macro photography. Ideally, you should be using a tripod if you're going to be using these consistently, and especially if you're going to be using that multiple images so you can focus stack them to get the required depth of field if you're using smaller objects but with a larger depth of field. If you're a new viewer and you're liking this series, why not hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon, and you'll be advised when I upload the latest in this series. So again, thanks very much for watching. Please do take care, and I hope to see you all very, very soon. Goodbye for now.